Well, I really teach it in two ways. You have to have grace for yourself, which if you have no grace for yourself, you'll never survive. And with that grace for yourself, I mean, you have to have a long-term mentality and you have to have very short patience. And both those are really hard, but you see them in really great entrepreneurs, salespeople, leaders, and winners because they drive themselves relentlessly, that they're impatient for results.
Welcome to the show. Nathan Newberry here. I have Alec Hanson today on the show. Super pumped for you to hear his story and really get a glimpse of like really diving into his origin story and really kind of what's making him tick. Before that, I want to give you a free training down below in the show notes around how to build a brand. It's really important to know sales and marketing in any business. And this is a training that really kind of helps you really build that brand. So get that guide down below with that training, and that's going to really help you. Alex, super pumped to have you. Jumping right into the first question here. What does high performance mean to you? What does that look like? You've been an athlete. You've been, business owner, entrepreneur. You're a husband. You're a father. And now you're a MO at a large company. How does that all define who you are, and how does high performance, what does that look like to you?
Well, I have a different view now that I'm officially like a middle-aged man, like that. I've crossed over into that world. So my view now of high performance really falls back onto the ability for an individual to be consistent. Mm-hmm. Because there's greatness in sprinting, and there's greatness in like accomplishing a goal from A to B, and then we did it. But being able to put that together year over year, month over month, and just stay in the pocket, regardless of the market, regardless of the things in your life that changed. Like you mentioned, I'm a father, and there's lots more stuff going on in my life now that I'm Ubering kids around. Mm-hmm. But the ability for someone to stay consistent through life changes, market changes, excuses, and to deliver is starting to kind of reframe what I think a high performer really is.
Definitely. Now, to bring us back to the very beginning, the reason why I have this podcast is for people to be encouraged on like being motivated and like well thought of like high performers like yourself. Bring us back to the very moment that you were a little bit different. How old were you? Where was this? Tell me a little story in the audience here of like the beginning stages of your entrepreneurship journey here and building what you're doing now.
I have some funny stories then, I guess I'll share. So one is, there's a power in the imprinting that your parents give you.
Yeah.
And, I don't remember, you look back at your childhood, you try to remember like a lot of when you were a little kid. And I don't remember tons, snippets, moments. But one of them was ironically in third grade, which I remember very little of third grade, but I came home with a C. And my mother sat me down, and I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't really care about anything at that age. And she like had a seriousness to her, and she looked at me and she's like, "Alec, you're not a C student, you're an A student." And the interesting part of that conversation was who at third grade, who knows what kind of student I am, honestly. And I have kids now. I'm like, I hope they're like third grade. But what she gave me, the gift she gave me, was she started to imprint identity on me. And over time, that identity started to become what I believed I am. And that's a powerful, motivating reality for a lot of high performers, is what they internally believe they are. And so translate this up, I played kids sports. I was semi-good. And then the second I got to junior high, I made the basketball team, but I didn't play. And I was like, my identity was challenged. I was like, wait a minute, I'm good at sports. Everyone says I'm good at sports. I have 1,000 participation trophies that say I'm good at sports, because I grew up in that age. So what's going on? And I think people react to that stimulus differently. For me, I went and shot hoops every single day. I shot every single day. I went at recess and lunch. I was shooting hoops. I was a sweaty kid in junior high. Like, how embarrassing is that? But like, I didn't have friends. I was bullied and I didn't have friends anyway. So who cares? But it was so like those things imprinted on me to the point that I graduated with great grades, went to a great college because I was personally just driven to be who I believed I was inside. And then, when you get into the working world, and I jumped into, after a brief stint learning the business, I jumped into a 100% commission sales job at 23. And I just attacked it.
Yeah.
Like just was refused to lose. And, the funniest story I have there, because tying back into consistency and hard work and all this stuff, is I showed up at a brand new office that I transferred into after I kind of learned the business. And it was my first day. I didn't know the new boss. And so I showed up at 8:15 because, the company policy is the doors like 8:15 to 5:15 was when we were open. So I show up at 8:15, nobody's there. And I'm just hanging out. So 10 o'clock, some people roll in, like not even the manager. And they let me in because I guess I was like, oh, I'm working here now, I know, whatever. And they are all salespeople. And by about 3:30, everyone was gone. Now, I learned later that a lot of these, when you're self-generating salespeople and you're out there 100% commission, you're not in the office all day. You're out, you're shaking, you're on appointments, you're meeting people. But I looked right then, I was like, I'm going to crush everybody here. They're not even working full days. This is embarrassing. And, I ended up getting like number one in the nation for rookie, in every mortgage company out there. And I did a lot of strong production, but I outworked people even when I didn't know anything. And I was 23 and I was learning guidelines as I went.
Yeah. There's a quote I love to live by. And I want to get your thoughts on this, especially being in commission sales, just like I have. There's a saying that Patrick Bet-David says that you got to outwork, out-improve, outlast, and out-strategize. I'll say that again. Outwork, out-improve, outlast, out-strategize. I think that's for entrepreneur and for someone that's doing commission sales, like to get that ingrained in who they are. Like we're talking about identity shift. Like that's so important to get as a salesperson, to just like get in that grit and that grind and focus to really outfocus, outlast, outwork, out-improve every day. How has that been with doing sales? Because sales is not easy. And you've been doing this for over 20 years, and now you lead teams and you're doing the, marketing for a mortgage company, Loan Depot, with your big t-shirt there. Like to instill that, to teach it, to lead it. How do you go about that with those efforts with sales?
Well, I really teach it in two ways. You have to have grace for yourself, which if you have no grace for yourself, you'll never survive. And with that grace for yourself, I mean, you have to have a long-term mentality and you have to have very short patience. And both those are really hard, but you see them in really great entrepreneurs, salespeople, leaders, and winners because they drive themselves relentlessly. They're impatient for results. But at the same time, they forgive themselves for losing, for failing, for messing up, and they get back in the ring really quickly. And they have this kind of abundance long-term mentality. I mean, when I was 23, my whole thing was, you're either going to work for me or I'm going to outlive you in the industry. And now I'm middle-aged, so I don't have the same mindset, but I just had this like longevity perspective of, if I don't win today, I'm going to win tomorrow. And that with my impatience is the superpower I see in most high performers.
Now, was that trained at the very beginning? Was it a book you read? Because I mean, really with salespeople, and tell me if I'm wrong in the mortgage industry, but a lot of sales industries that I've been in, it's like you're rejected 70, 80% of the time, and it's like the 30% on average that are closed deals. It's like to have that resolve and rejection is not easy. But if someone comes into it while they're young and say, hey, you're going to be rejected way more than you are going to get closed deals, that helps build that backbone and resolve a little bit. How is that in the mortgage industry? And how did you kind of go face to face with that?
So I hacked my way through it, and I redefined some of the ways I viewed reality. And I think this is going to be helpful for some people because my main strategy for business was B2B. I had to get referral partners, whether they were builders, realtors, financial planners, to refer me their clients. So I was kind of B2B in the beginning. Like, I need, Nathan, you're going to go buy a house. You're talking to a realtor. I need that realtor to introduce you to me. And this is 2002, 2003, long ass time ago. So you could frame one way of like, I go meet a realtor and I get rejected. Hey, I'd like to earn your business. Alec, go pound sand, or whatever happens. And for me, I was riddled. I kind of mentioned, I was bullied growing up. I had such insecurity, such call reluctance, such fear of rejection that it was almost crippling to try to go and talk to these agents. I refused to cold call them because I just couldn't handle that. I even think about it just makes me like get anxious. So what I did was I didn't sell. When I would go visit them at their open houses and broker previews, or when I would mail them, or when I try to get an appointment with them, I never asked for anything. I just walked in and introduced myself. And you compound that over 3 to 4 or 5 interactions a month to 7 to 8 interactions a month that I could create or curate. And now I became a known entity. And so through that process, I built relationships to the degree that I remember distinctly one guy who I was like, Nathan, we're like buddies. Why aren't you using me for mortgage? And he'd laugh and he'd be like, I don't know, bro. And so the conversation was a lot more organic and casual than I walk in day one. Here's a flyer. I have great rates. I have great programs. I close loans. I'm amazing. Here's my testimonials. Use me. And so I kind of didn't attack it. But again, like if you had an open house and I was going after you, you better be damn ready because I'm showing up. I was there every time, every networking event. Every time I get a chance to get in front of you, I was in front of you. So I was, stalking these people, but I wasn't harassing them. I wasn't selling them. I wasn't pitching them. I wasn't cornering them. Is Tuesday or Thursday better for a meeting? And I don't want to get on a huge tangent here, but I have to say this, Nathan. The internet now, the ability to just hang out with people now and be cool and not direct message people for deals and just to be interested in them and ask questions and engage in their content and support them is what I was doing back in 2003 face to face. Like you can do it now so much easier. But that opened up radical doors for me, built my brand, built my reputation locally, got me connected to people, and then I started to get referrals and deals. And then then I would lose deals. I wouldn't win the sale. I didn't have the right structure. Someone else beat me on price. There's 1,000 things I would lose deals on and I'd go crazy. But like I broke through that rejection part by just building relationships.
That is so huge. And even then now, like there's a lot of information. We're in the global audience now, right? So it's like the local market before the internet. That was a little easier because like the only person was in your local market. Now we're global market. There's new strategies and takes, but that still doesn't beat the relationships that you have with people. That goes so far. And I don't want people to miss that because I think that's really, really important, even in the information age that we are in today.
Yeah, I post a ton and I coach and push a ton about how to develop your own content strategy, whether that's short form, long form podcast, like pick your lane, pick your platforms, all that fun stuff. But then underneath that, the thing that everyone forgets immediately is if you just surround yourself on these social platforms with the people you want to influence, if you connect intentionally day in, day out with the people you want to influence, and then just get on these platforms and just be more interested in them than you are about talking about yourself. Yep. I mean, sales almost writes itself.
Yep.
But we just want to talk about ourselves so much, and I get it and I love it, but it's a two-way street. And if you play both sides, you dominate. Yep. But you can almost win just as big just going on and social and being cool and great with other people and connect and engage and comment and just don't pitch at the first 5 seconds of hanging out with somebody.
And I think that's where people get a bad taste in their mouths, is because a lot of people are doing that type of thing and it just turns 100%. People off. And so there's a big overlap in you being in sales for decades and now being marketing. There's a big overlap with sales and marketing. Talk about some of that, because I think there's needing to be both. Like if I had zero online presence and I was just doing sales, I'm missing a huge component. Or if I just say, hey, I'm only going to be online, but never go face to face, or I'm never going to be going doing sales. Like there's an overlap with these things. Talk about those strategies that are important for someone to really kind of hear and listen to and apply.
I think they're blending. I think sales and marketing are blending. Mm-hmm. And it's almost impossible to tell you where the delineation is for a lot of organizations. Now, let me speak simplistically from Loan Depot, right? We have a bunch of direct to consumer loan officers that are on, their phones. And so the company does all this marketing, generates all this opportunity, and then we hand them a lead and then they talk to that customer. So there seems to be like a very clear line there for like where marketing starts and stops. When you're in the field, or if you're a self-generating entrepreneur or self-generating mortgage professional, the line blurs even further. And in my mind, the reason it's blurring is because great marketing makes the sale irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't need to convince you anymore. Like, people think sales is the convincing part. It's like the part where I get you to sign on the line that is dotted. You know what I mean? Where versus marketing is like, make you feel good and you like me and all this stuff, and then I got to bring the sale. But really great marketing today brings people way further down the funnel to the point where they're already committed. And at this point, it's just kind of the details of the offering and what's best for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think people, that they don't really see that or understand that, they're gonna make huge mistakes in sales and marketing in the future, because these things are starting to blend at dramatic levels.
I heard something where it's like 95% of our subconscious just runs on autopilot, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's like the days of being marketed to on just like billboards or like a bus bench is so different now, because we're bombarded with so many more inputs where our whole body and mind are just shutting these things out and blinding us with everything.
So done with
And
it. Yeah.
I think the new way of marketing isn't necessarily being on a billboard, but being an influencer marketer, in a sense where what we're talking about is sales and marketing, where it's like people know you, they understand you, what you're about, but you're also selling a service where it's a people thing. So bridging the gap between that. Talk about your strategies as a marketing expert for this huge Loan Depot company, and then bringing it together where now you're training people, you're leading people, you're really kind of coming up with some key strategies. How does that go about with training people and teaching people now with this?
Well, when you start at the global perspective, these things, you have to realize how interconnected things are. So we're unique in some ways in that we have a very strong digital customer support strategy, meaning people that just want to talk on phones, text, they don't want to meet you, they want to be digital. And we have a very strong localized strategy where it's like, no, you want to meet somebody, you want to have accountability, you want to get a coffee, you want to actually talk like face to face with who's going to help you, and there's a lot of nuance to all those strategies, and it really stems from our founders, intent of, you have to serve customers the way they want to be served. And the second you tell a customer, no, you have to do it this way, you're going to start losing opportunity, because some customers aren't going to do what you want them to do. But that being said, when we're looking at global marketing initiatives, we're looking at how they all tie in down to the street level, and how are they interconnected to the overarching sales process. So if we're creating a piece of brand connective, content, how does this translate into what we believe and what we're trying to achieve on the local level and on the national level, and how are we connecting those dots so that a global piece of content that's on connected TV or on a Major League Baseball commercial or something like that can actually mean something to the rest of the company, and to our employees, and to their sales and marketing efforts. And so there's a lot of intentionality that has to come behind that when you're not just running a direct to consumer kind of call center style business. But when it comes to training and building out resources and strategies for everybody, it's a lot. We have one of the biggest national joint venture channels in the country. So we have them to support. We have people on phones, we have people in the streets, and all of them have unique needs on how they're trying to meet customers that have to roll up and combine to what our global messaging strategy is. So it's a little bit of there's a little bit of art and science woven in there, but I'll tell you what is the core principles. People do business with people they like, know, and trust. And that's the same with companies. And as much as the world has tried to commodify mortgages into this thing that you can kind of push a button and get it, that's not true. There's so much nuance, especially when you're talking about first-time home buyers, people trying to get into this world. There's so much nuance to a mortgage that you need professional consultative wisdom to help make the best decision. And so, we do that by getting our salespeople louder and helping them, like you mentioned, to build the personal brand thing you're pushing out. Every loan officer has to have a strong personal brand strategy to win in this year, or even last year. It's becoming more. You can't achieve the levels of success you're capable of without it. And they need to figure out how to master and leverage video and content and social platforms, because that's where their customers and potential customers are hanging out.
Yeah.
And that goes the same thing for corporations. If they can't figure out how to speak to the customer really and in their language and be relatable and be connectable, they will lose.
Yeah. Talk about your strategy here, because when someone's first starting out in the world of market, like people use social media typically for, their grandma or their parents or, their cousins or their friends to see them day to day. But really you're using the strategy as kind of presenting yourself as an expert. And I know the big shift is how can you go from, doing the personal stuff to also interweaving the business content. And then there's some platforms that people like more than others. And my thought behind it is nobody's doing it, all of it.
No.
And I think that if you were looking at to really have an edge, regardless of what industry you are, if you just look at, hey, I'm going pro and I'm going to go all in and I'm going to be doing marketing and I got to learn what influencers are doing that. How do you go about really looking at that a little bit different? Because there's some aspect of it of like dipping your toes in it and getting an understanding of it. Because if someone looks at a strategy of like, this is where you need to be everywhere, this is the max you can do, that overwhelms people and shuts them down. Or like, this is just not for me. And then they're done. And, or, the ramp up to be pro. Like, talk about that strategy with what you guys do.
Okay. So when we're talking about individual salespeople and all this opportunity, and then you're introducing social platforms, content strategies, let's just dumb it down. What do you want to achieve? And so when I talk to salespeople or individuals about this, it's like, well, I want more business, or I want more connectivity, or I want more relationships. What they're really saying is I want more business.
100%.
And it's like, okay, well then every sales book from all time starts talking about your sphere of influence and the people that know you, and your marketing efforts has to be to get more people to know you. And people are like, yes, I agree. I get more people need to know me. And I'm like, okay, great. So there's a million strategies we can build to expand how people, to get people to know you. There's localized stuff. There's one-to-one stuff. There's one-to-many stuff. There's social. There's YouTube. There's email. Let's just put all those on the whiteboard for now. But we have to agree that fundamentally, if you want to get more business, more people need to know you. And then when you carve that down from the people who know you, you want to do business with people who like you. We've all done business with people that don't like us, that somehow we got into business with, and then it's a terrible experience. And we're like, how did this happen? I hate this client. So we want to work with people that respect us and like us for what we do, so that we have that like level of like, we're working with people that appreciate our services, want us to work with them, all that stuff. And then from that like you, bucket, you're going to get down to people that actually trust you. Because you and I both have people we probably like that we probably don't trust today. You're not picking my kids up from school, but I like you. We'll hang out and have a drink, but I'm not lending you money. Right. So that's been around since sales started. I mean, that's just the whole thing is this: how many people know you? Do they actually like you, care about you, and do they trust you? And so when you go, okay, well, let's talk about social platforms, for example, and like just explore this. I don't have to convince anybody anymore that these platforms aren't going away. There's going to be new ones coming in all the time. This is how humans are going to continue to hang out. I don't have to convince anybody anymore that humans are staring at their screens all day long. And they're watching YouTube and they're being entertained. And so if you want to have influence over those people, I think everybody now finally would just nod their head and say, you're right, I have to have a strategy if I want to leverage this. But you made a good comment, Nathan, like everyone's using this for like family connections, hanging out. You have to reframe this if you want to use it as a tool.
And it needs to be.
And you don't
it's
have
not
to.
just if you want to run a business and be commission sales, it's not it's a quote unquote like want. It's like you have to be obsessed and do it. Like I don't think there's any other way around it. Now getting good.
No, you're not gonna be very successful. Right. Like you're not. Like you're just capping yourself. I used to be a lot more aggressive, be like, you're going to lose your business. But like, I'm trying to be a little soft-hearted and be like, you're just not going to achieve the level of success you're capable of, period. You're never going to do it. So yes, you have to reframe it. You have to use it as a tool for human connection. You've got to figure out how to play in it. And then where everyone gets, again, super caught up, it's like, well, what do I say? What do I do? I just come back to one core value, which is, can you be helpful?
Yeah.
And so they go, well, yeah. I mean, like, let's put on my mortgage hat, right? Like, can you be helpful? Like, what can you be helpful with, mortgage guy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there that I could give truth to. Okay. There's a lot of people who I'm doing loans for right now that have problems that maybe other people have those problems. So maybe I could share the solutions. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So like people realize really quickly, to be helpful, they have a unlimited amount of stuff to talk about, and they're living it every day that they can bring to light. So go be helpful. And that eliminates all this, like, well, do I post a picture of me in my car? Do I post a picture of me in my closing and brag about how fast and good I am? Or no, don't do any of that crap. Just make content that helps people. And you're going to realize that you've cut through a lot of the BS on social, and you're finally able to kind of maybe get a strategy that works for you.
Yeah. Don't be fake, be real, be who you are, but also add tons of value. I think that's awesome. I want to shift gears, asking you personally something that happened not too long ago. You and I are at computers all day long, and then you and Shakira with Hips Don't Lie. Something happened. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, November 19th, a couple months ago, I had my right hip replaced. And then November 15th, 2 years before that, I had my left hip replaced. And the doctors gave me no good reason why I had no cartilage left in my hips. They're just like, well, it's gone. And I'm like, well, it's just like, why is it gone? And they're like, well, we don't know. Your hips are kind of slightly opened, but like that shouldn't cause all your cartilage to go away. So I'm just chalking it up to I'm an overachiever, and I went through my cartilage before everybody else. So it sucks. It's not fun. But you know, I just got off my cane. I'm now walking. I have PT 3 times a week, and I'm back in the gym, and it's terrible, but it's a a surgery that you can recover from. And I'm 1,000 times better now that I'm, turning into Wolverine, but it wasn't fun. And I'll tell you, I lived about 3 years of my life with what I would call as debilitating hip, arthritic pain, and gained a ton of weight and had really poor quality of life because I was trying to push off the surgeries. And I remember sitting there with my kid and not being able to really run or play basketball with him or coach him or help out, and just being like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just scheduled the surgery and started on my path.
And then you got into a transformation with working out. You have a CrossFit gym that then you later sold, but health is a key component of who you are. And not only this, but most of the time people that have surgeries, especially big ones like that, get hooked on meds and they can't get past it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Talk about the resolve that you had with just, and realistically, most of the time people that have surgeries, like I had a wrist resurgery, it's just, you're just realize you're still going to have pain and it's going to hurt. And you're just like, you're dealing with it. Like, talk about that transition with it, resolve, focus, getting off meds, building a business around fitness. Like, give us those insights there.
Yeah. I mean, look, I another core belief I have that just is, I've tried to live out as best I can, is your personal health and fitness absolutely impacts your ability to perform at high levels in any profession. Mm-hmm. And I know some people whose health and fitness, I would say, maybe is lacking a little bit, and they do perform at high levels. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I also think that like they definitely compound and help. And there's huge synergies between somebody who takes care of their body and their health, and then can perform at high levels for long periods of time in a profession and in family and all that stuff. So it's been very important to me for a long time. And I mentioned that, when my hips started to go, maintaining a health and fitness regimen was very difficult.
Yeah.
And I ended up gaining, a lot of weight during that time, and my health and fitness suffered. And I had to figure out how to reclaim that. And it's hard and painful. Unfortunately, the further things go, the more you have to come back. So 7-8 years ago, when I realized I needed to get serious about my personal digital strategy to be a good coach and executor, I did a stupid thing that I'll never do again, which was I did 100 videos in 100 days because I realized I needed to do video. I got to figure this out. I'm coaching people and I'm not doing it myself. I hate that. So I got to figure it out. So I did 100 videos in 100 days and I filmed and bashed content and then posted every single day for 100 days. Well, when I wanted to reclaim some of my health, I was like, you know what? I know what I need to do. I'm just going to do 100 days of working out every day, which I defined as sweat every day. So I could go for a hike, I could go for a walk. As long as I sweat, I had a I had a personal trainer 3 times a week. And then other than that, I just had to get in the gym or get out and do something. I ate meat and vegetables and little fat. So some avocado, some almonds, but just everything was pretty meat and veggies, no carbs, no sugars, no alcohol, no processed foods really. Diet Coke was my only one thing that I allowed. And in 100 days, I lost 55 pounds and, reclaimed some of that health and fitness. I'm back on that journey again because, like I said, I just had the right hip redone. So when you're going through all that, it's hard to maintain your physicality when you're laid up. And so I'm still on that journey, and I'll be there for a while. But for anybody else looking for a way to kind of carve through it, on the other hack for that, Nathan, that worked for me was everything was public. I posted every day about how I was doing. I posted my weight. I posted how much I had gained or lost the day before every single day. And I posted what I was doing.
Public accountability.
And I made that. Yeah. And you know what's funny about that is no one gives a shit. I mean, they don't. They really don't. My loved ones do. But people don't. They have their own life they're worried about. They have their own stuff they're dealing with. They're not oh my God, Alec posted again. But for me, it was the fear of the shame of potentially not completing it. The public, I can't tolerate that. So that's kind of me hacking my own insecurities again and using them for my own, rocket fuel.
And to mention this is people buy your standards, right? And the fact that you held yourself to a standard, people are encouraged and motivated by. So I think those things are not bad to be selfish, but actually motivating for people. And they actually understand what's in priority for you, which they can connect with because either they do it themselves and they like it, or they're not doing it and they know it should. And so they like following you for it.
Yeah. And look, I had to make it public because in 100 days, there's plenty of birthday parties. There's plenty of networking events. There's plenty of social hours. There's plenty of parties. Yep. There's plenty of holidays. You're not going to skip any of that stuff. You're going to cross it all. So if I didn't have it public, I would have just fallen in and drank and ate and whatever on any of those days. But the fact that I knew I had to post the next day and say I didn't do it, it held me to the standard.
Yeah. So we've talked about your business. We've talked about sales. We talked about marketing. We've talked about habits of success. Has there been any principles that you lived by or specific rules that you're like, hey, this is who I am. This is how I live, the identity formations of principles or habits that you live by that are real important for people to know about you and also be encouraged by it too? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it so simplistically, but hard work and consistency beats everything all the time, every time. I mean, I don't care how talented you are, how smart you are, how good you are, how fast you pick things up. I will beat your ass because I will just work harder and longer than you will, and you will not win. And I have a funny story about that I love so my dad was a professional tennis player, played Wimbledon, won a bunch of, gold tennis balls at big national tournaments and all this fun stuff. And he was not an imposing tennis player, if you get my drift. He wasn't 6'6", smashing 120, serves. He was just a quick, fast, tenacious player. And in tennis tournaments, he would tell me, and I would watch, that you would play all day. And so, it was elimination. So the championship was at the end of the day. And so there's a lot of stamina involved and endurance involved. You're going to make it to the end. You're going to have played a lot that day. And my dad's mentality was, I might lose, but I'm going to lose so ugly. I'm going to make you earn every point that after playing me, you're going to be too tired to win the next game. And so I'm going to run down every ball. I'm going to run. I'm going to hit every shot back I can. I'm going to play. I'll be here for 3 hours with you, baby. Let's go. Sign up.
Mm.
And I watched people as a young kid just crumble because he just kept running down ball. And it's like, just go to the next play. Like, people be lazy. Oh, that's a winner. And he's just every chance. And he's like, look, if I lose, you're going to earn the victory. And then you're going to be so beat up from beating me, you're going to lose the next game. And I love that. I'm in. It's just this dedication to hard work, no matter what. And I think that's the superpower, is just keep showing up.
It's so important. So important. How can people follow you more, Alec? How can they connect with you?
Oh gosh, I love that answer. I love that question. So when you ask salespeople, like, do you ever hand out business cards anymore,
Never.
Nathan? So this is my favorite thing, is business cards. And it's going to answer your question. I don't mean to be an ass about this, but like, if somebody can't find a salesperson or an entrepreneur within seconds of Googling that person's failing. That entrepreneur, that salesperson's failing. And so, my answer to all these things of where can people find you? I'm like, just Google and you're going to find me, and then hang out with me where you think I add value. So I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast. I'm on TikTok, which, God bless it, RIP if it's still around. You got Instagram, X, Facebook, email. I'm all these website, like, but my encouragement when anyone asks me this question on podcasts is, turn the mirror around for everyone listening. Are you instantly found on all these places? And if you're not, that's just opportunity for you now. Go get it done.
Yeah.
Because if you're really serious about helping people and getting your brand out, then you need to be able to be found in seconds.
That's right. So I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Alec, and it's so important, coming from the words of a CMO from a big, large company to all the listeners here who are listening in. Make sure that you're building a brand that people are listening and hearing in every place. Building a brand is not easy, and knowing how to do it takes a lot of grit and grind, but it also takes like a key strategy of like how you're adding value. How do you use AI? How do you build a team around some of these things? So if you haven't got that guide down below with that training, I want you to do that now. Go follow Alec to be encouraged more on his own podcast and all his social media. And until next time, we will see you on the next episode.